Chapter 2, Builder's Brief. Wednesday, 12:02 p.m. The next day, the conversation picked up as if it had never paused. It was Richard, predictably, who lit the fuse. He didn't even wait for everyone to sit down, sliding his phone onto the center of the table with a theatrical flair. On the screen was a screenshot of a tweet that felt like a declaration of war on their entire profession. Exhibit A, Richard announced, tapping the screen. Google Gemini's head of product. We're ditching PRDs for prototypes. It's happening, people. The old way is officially dead. Sarah squinted at the phone, her shoulders tensing. That's a huge shift, she said, the words coming out slowly as if she were handling a delicate explosive. A building-first culture. What does that even mean for accountability? A product requirements document was a contract. It was the document of record you pointed to when things went sideways. It was also a 50-page document that nobody read and was outdated the second you hit publish, Richard countered, grabbing a slice of pizza. Rohit, you know what I'm talking about. We're already doing this. I haven't written a real PRD in months. He was right. Rohit nodded in acknowledgement. We don't, not really. The process has fundamentally changed. Last week, I needed to spec out a new onboarding flow. Instead of writing for days, I spent 10 minutes with Nova. He leaned forward, painting the picture for them. My brief was simple, something like, propose a functional prototype for a better user onboarding flow for Emailwise Prime, and Nova did the rest. Hung and I built it to be contextually aware. It automatically scanned our Confluence library for the design system, cross-referenced Jira for the top user complaints in the onboarding epic, and tapped into external market intelligence APIs to analyze competitor flows. It pulled all that context together on its own. In less time than it takes to get a coffee, I had a working prototype I could show to engineering and design. Hung, meticulously separating the peas in his fried rice, looked up. The efficiency gain is undeniable, he stated, a rare moment of unreserved agreement. The cycle time between hypothesis and validation has collapsed. We no longer spend weeks debating theoreticals in a document. We can now debate a tangible artifact. The time spent on writing has been reallocated to building and testing. See, even Hung agrees, Richard exclaimed, gesturing with his pizza. We spend zero time on the boring stuff. We get to the good part, the actual product, almost instantly. For a moment, there was consensus. They all recognized the sheer power of it. The tedious hours spent documenting every edge case, every user story, and every dependency were simply gone. The mind-numbing meetings spent ensuring everyone had read the latest version of the spec had vanished. They had been liberated from the tyranny of the document. Okay, I'll grant you the efficiency, Sarah conceded, pushing her salad around with a fork. But this tweet, role profiles are blurring. That's the part that gives me chills. If this becomes the norm, what happens to us? Are we just prompt engineers now? That's exactly what we are, and it's awesome, Richard shot back, his optimism radiating. Think about it. English is the new programming language. The prototype is the spec. And it's not just a prototype anymore, is it? Not since last month's update. Nova can read our entire codebase now. When I ask for a new feature, it doesn't just give me a Figma file. It gives me functional code that hooks into our existing microservices. The spec isn't just a prototype, it's the first pull request. That only works if the idea is simple, Richard, Sarah argued, her voice gaining intensity. It works for your self-contained feature. What about a platform-wide architecture change? What about a feature with dependencies on legal for data privacy, marketing for the go-to-market plan, and 3 other engineering teams whose roadmaps you're about to blow up? A prototype or even a code snippet can't capture that. A PRD, for all its flaws, forced that alignment. It forced you to think through the entire system. Hung put down his chopsticks. Sarah is correct, he said with his usual precision. A prototype demonstrates a single successful pathway. It is an existence proof. Generating code is even more complex. A specification document must account for the entire state space: edge cases, error handling, non-functional requirements like security and scalability. A prototype of a skyscraper might show you what the lobby looks like, but it doesn't tell you if the foundation can withstand an earthquake. Generating code without that foundational blueprint risks creating massive technical debt. The planning stage is essential for complex systems to prevent cascading failures. Rohit leaned back. Feels like we're arguing about the map versus the car. The tweet said writing was a proxy for clear thinking. The goal wasn't a perfect document. It was clarity and alignment. Maybe the artifact changes, but the need for rigor doesn't. If we ditch PRDs, what replaces them as the source of truth? Who owns the hard trade-offs when roles blur? Who is the conscience of the product? He glanced around the table, then tried a bridge. What if the spec isn't for humans at all? What if it's for Nova, the builder itself? A hybrid. We co-author a builder's brief with Nova, then let Nova build against it. Sarah tilted her head. Define it. Lightweight, structured, and machine consumable, Rohit said, warming to it. We brainstorm with Nova, as we do with each other. Brief covers the user outcome and problem statement, explicit guardrails for privacy, safety, regulatory, dependencies and owners across teams, non-functional requirements and performance SLAs, integration boundaries and rollback plan, success metrics and a time box for the prototype, and a decision log with who owns each trade-off and why. Nova then generates the prototype and an annotated PR that cites the brief sections it satisfied, he continued. Reviews are routed based on the brief. Legal sees privacy items. Stakeholders see interfaces. If the brief changes, Nova regenerates the prototype and flags diffs. The brief becomes the source of truth for the exploration, fast like a prototype, rigorous like a spec. Sarah exhaled. I could live with that if the guardrails are real, not vibes, and if the decision log is mandatory. I need a record I can point to when someone asks why we shipped X and not Y. Hung nodded. Constraining the state space with explicit guardrails will reduce failure modes while preserving speed. It converts implicit assumptions into explicit contracts with the system. Richard tapped the table. English prompt in, working code out, and a builder's brief as the glue. The spec stays, but now it has a spine. Let's pilot it, Rohit said. We'll draft a brief for NutriCoach onboarding this afternoon, co-write it with Nova, and attach it to the PR as the artifact of record. If it works, it replaces product specs for all low to medium complexity features, and for platform work, it becomes the front door to a deeper review. Perhaps the definition of innovation is changing, Hung suggested quietly. It is no longer about a single flash of insight. It is about the synthesis of many data points. The AI provides the synthesis. You provide the wisdom to know if it is correct. The thought lingered in the air. The line between their ideas and the AI's suggestions was blurring, leaving them to question where the human contribution truly began and where the algorithms ended. They were still the builders, but they were no longer the only architects.